Hi, and welcome to another episode of Coffee with Mirko, the podcast and live stream where we talk with coffee professional and on, and we're just very happy to have you here. So first and foremost, I hope you're safe, hope you're all well, and it's just a pleasure having you here. Today we got another amazing guest, and we're gonna bring him on right here. He's right on time. He's Kris.
Hello, what's up?
Hello, guten Tag, guten Morgen.
Guten Morgen. How are you?
I'm fantastic. How you doing?
I'm good. Do you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly. I love the shirt.
Thank you. Yeah,
Um, First and foremost, Kris, it's so nice to meet you, and thank you for giving us time out of your busy schedule. So very grateful for you to be here. And how are you and your family with the whole
I
pandemic?
would I would say we're pretty good. We're trying to keep a little bit sane. It's definitely challenging these times. But I have a small daughter, so that's also been a little bit challenging. Not a lot of kids, but some of my friends have 3 or 4 kids, and that's much different. Where
Still, oh, here you go.
are you located?
Hang on, it's freezing. Hold on. Here we go. I got you back. Sorry, what did you ask?
Well, where are you located? I don't know much about where you are.
Melbourne, Australia. So
Okay, great.
yeah, it's a beautiful place to be. Minus the lockdown, but grateful to have a roof and coffee, water, food. So I can't complain. I really can't.
Well,
Um,
here it's been a little bit of a utopia, I would say. They really handled the COVID crisis a little bit differently, and in a lot of ways, they helped to like pave the. Yeah, I have a little cough, but it's not. I'm not sick. So in a lot of ways, they helped to pave the way for how to do this kind of testing. So they were in Germany. They were very well established with doing track and trace kind of testing. So we were able to open up a little bit earlier than most, I think. But yeah, I mean, here it feels pretty much like normal again.
that's beautiful to hear. With us was the opposite. We thought we managed well the first hit, and we reopened up in June, and yeah, I think today's day 9 of a bit of a harsh air lockdown. So we'll see. We'll
Well,
see how it goes.
you're locked down
Yeah.
now. Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
for here, it's very difficult with, I would say some people have cafes that are either really affected or they're having a surge in business. So for us, we're kind of in the middle. So we have cafes that, because we are a tourist cafe, that people come from also all over the world. I think we fare a little bit better, but since there's no tourists, we're kind of stuck in the middle. But it's, I can't complain. We're actually opening a new shop next week. So
Right. Congratulations. That's
yeah.
fantastic.
Well, we agreed on this before COVID, but even then, we're trying not to let COVID-19 really affect our decisions as much as we can. Because I think if we did put the brakes on the project for a while, and now we decided to go about a month ago. So we should be open next Wednesday, and it's in the north in Prince Lauerberg. So yeah, we're excited.
Fantastic. And speaking of which, just to jump right into it, because I know you're quite time constrained. You know, Korean SCA trainer, good friend here, said Five Elephant is my favorite coffee shop in Germany, and you touched base on being quite a tourist destination. What values and what ideas were behind it, and what's your story and journey in coffee?
Well, we started, I would say, in dinosaur times. So we had, it was a long time ago, and we had a lot of friends who were very interested in purchasing coffee directly, working at origin. I came from the US where that was already an idea. And maybe, I mean, this, I don't know when it started in Australia, probably 10 years ago or.
Yeah, that's about 10 years ago, still kind of second wave, and people were starting moving pieces. But yeah, definitely
We
it
were,
spiked up 5 years ago. Yeah.
I guess you would call it the third wave that is sort of swept into Europe. We tried not to really associate ourselves with a wave, but we had a lot of the same philosophies. You could pretty much, I guess, look on every bag how they position themselves. And this is pretty much a normal thing these days. But back then there was Coffee Collective, Intelligentsia, Stumptown, Blue Bottle. I guess it started. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, yeah, I got you.
So counterculture, you know, you could count on one hand the companies that were doing it back then. So we thought it would be a new thing in Europe, relatively new. And we decided to, from the very beginning in 2010, roast coffee, work as directly as we could with producers, try to increase value at origin. More importantly, work in a way that we knew was traceable and trackable. So we also knew where the money we were paying on green beans, where that was going. That was important to us from the very beginning. We had a couple of friends here who were very much into coffee, and the coffee scene in Berlin was just incubating in a way. I mean, if you want to say it was incubating, 120 years ago, they invented a paper filter in Berlin. So, I mean, this is actually a very old filter coffee tradition here. Unfortunately, it got hijacked a little bit by very cheap, low quality Robusta. So we had an issue, you know, 70s, 80s, 90s. Coffee here was seen as a very bitter drink that you basically don't drink at all. So we had a lot of, they call it Oma coffee, so grandma coffee.
Yeah,
So we were stepping into this scene where we were very interested in baking cakes. My wife and partner was coming from Vienna, so we thought it would be a really great mix to work with our hands, do something that we really loved, and more importantly, enjoy. Yeah, I would say the most important thing: enjoy what we do, because that's something that, for me in my life, that was always really important. That we liked working with coffee, but therefore we needed to know that we stood behind every part of it. So let's say what's happening. I mean, it's the same thing that everyone is saying these days, like having traceable sourcing, knowing exactly where your coffee is coming from. But I would say that we're doing a little bit more work cultivating value at origin. So we're trying to develop school projects in Kenya, for example. We're doing working with producers in El Salvador who are also doing rehabilitating their farms and providing medical clinics. So we're making sure that the money that we're spending extra in a premium is actually going towards real projects that we're involved in. So rather than like blanket, how do you say it, coffee tourism. So
yeah,
a
makes sense.
lot of people are I would differentiate ourselves from some. But I'm really excited about the number of people around the world who are focused on this kind of project and this kind of topic. And I think it's, for me, it's actually, it's helping to show us the value that we've been putting in over 10 years. And we're seeing it. We're seeing that all of these, great roasters around the world are focusing on doing real good projects. And changing people's perception as a kind of, as a community, right? I mean, we're all part of this same type of mentality. I think there's not really a way to, I would say that you're doing something different these days. Some people are. I mean, Tim Wendelbo's out buying a farm and working on his own organic production, which I think is an extension. But I think I'm seeing more of a shift that producers we're working with, we're trying to get more involved here on the consumer side. So this is something that I see as a trend that, and also a good trend, that we're not thinking of this as like an up to down relationship, but we're thinking of this more of a real partnership. Because maybe you probably heard this a lot, you know, people saying my farmer, or, you know, my, kind of putting a possessive, the farmers that, you know, that I work with, or the farmers that I pay. But that's not really, for me, that's not really the way to think about it. I want to think about this more as a holistic approach, to say, you know, because we have our own challenges here, and we can connect with people who we can help, and they can help us. There's no, like, we're at a higher level than they are, and that's a stigma that I think we really need to break.
Because we are in the people business, in the people industry. It's all about the people, isn't it? You know, coffee is beautiful, but the chain is made by people: pickers, producers, importers, roasters, baristas, and even good old Janet picking up her 3/4 strength decaf cappuccino. It's fine. And coffee brings people together. What I like about what you just said, which is a beautiful spiel, is that you shaped Five Elephant around that, because you shaped it around the pillars of your belief and value system, which I think is paramount when it comes to career as well as business. If someone was just focused on, you know, if it was only money driven, I'm not demonizing money, but if they put money as the primary objective, then they're going to do all the shortcuts and the action to navigate towards it. You see, you put instead values and your passion, you know, making things with your hands, working with coffee, ethically and directly trade sourced coffee, working more as a partnership and long-term relationships with origins. And those are clearly showing your pillars of your value scale.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because it seems to be exponentially growing in some way, that we try, and it's one of our biggest challenges, that, and we talk about this quite a lot within our company and with some of our key staff. How do we spread this idea to our staff and with our staff, especially when the company, you know, when you're growing and when things are changing as fast as they are in the coffee industry, you're constantly having to reevaluate your short-term and your medium-term goals, as we are now in COVID. So how do you develop and shift and change your whole focus of where you're focusing your efforts, how you're having a revenue streams. If you have to suddenly change and go 180 degrees, how do you bring your whole team and your whole community with you? So this, like, having these very defined values is something that I think is helpful, and it's also something that's just, for us, I mean, I'll admit it, it is a huge, difficult issue and topic in our company. A lot of people, everyone has their own ideas personally about where they're going. And I've really been into reading a lot lately about this shift in the social sphere between, let's say, the Vietnam War or the civil rights movement until these days, and seeing what's happened and how the individual has really, actually, unfortunately, through this peace and love movement, the individual consciousness has taken hijack. I hate saying that, but it's taking hijack over capitalism. And so we have this huge issue at the moment where everyone feels like they're the ones who have the freedom to grow a business in an unhealthy way, like this. It is unfortunately a pyramid scheme. And so unless you're focusing on how do you keep a healthy system around that, a social system where you have, it's a kind of, I won't call it necessarily a welfare state, but you have to give back. You have to keep yourself down somewhat in order for capitalism to not get out of hand.
The good news, The good news, I think, when people are like that is that it's not good because it's a bit bad, but they don't sleep at night.
They don't.
Often, they don't sleep at night. They don't go
No.
up to bed thinking, ah, it was a good day, you know. And like, I think that when you go that 180 flip, a lot of people, burn themselves out because as as they build an unhealthy business, you can only build it if you're also unhealthy towards yourself, I feel. So I think
Yeah.
healthy business is also healthy staff, healthy ownerships, both in mind and body. So definitely that's one side of it. And the other side is that I think that a lot of people are catching up a little bit. You know, there's some great global brands who are so clearly,
Yeah.
you know, you can see their purpose. What I can truly see from you, and people gather that, and you're translating that today, is that you really care about these issues, which is exactly what we need, people who actually care about it and do something about it.
Yeah, I think it is refreshing to see a movement of people, for me that at least pick up on this, think about refrigerants. It's an important topic. I mean, it's you never would have 10 years ago, this never would have been discussed, I think.
Oh yeah.
Uh, yeah, so this is, I think, thankful to social media and us being able to share what we think in feed. And I guess most people have a reasonable way of thinking, and when they're judging what they want to do and what brands they want to work with or purchase or which they value, then they can choose. And for us, it's something that we really are working to communicate more. Maybe you met Veronica, who is doing our social media. I just called her out. She's probably laughing in the other room, but
No, I'm sure she's not
so
laughing.
we're working a little bit more because we've been doing all of this stuff a little bit more behind the scenes, and we're now working on how do we share this more, because I really believe that sharing by doing or showing by doing is really one of the best ways, rather than showing by saying. So we we want to really just do this and bring people into our world of what we're working on, and the projects that we do.
And guess what? The best part of this is it's trial and error. Like there is no right or wrong. For instance, there's a big conversation in Melbourne because about a year and a half ago, a coffee roaster in Melbourne started printing their tasting note cards where they were literally saying, "This is how much they usually charge for a kilo at origin. This is how much we paid. This is how much it cost us. Here's your card." And it built a bit of controversy because some people are saying, "Oh, you're trying to make yourself look good." Others opposite are like, "Oh yeah, we want more of this." Guess what? There's no right or wrong. They are going that direction, which it's interesting. Others are doing more, movies or books, or they're doing more social media work. And it's just a matter of gathering thoughts, sharing them, and then eventually people will just glue and stick to them. And at the end of the day, look, we live in a world where a lot of people do certain actions and follow certain brands to feel good about themselves, which is okay. In this case, it works in our favor because then, of course, I want to support the projects that gives back to the community and the farmers. So there's a feeling good behind it. But if it's genuine, then it's a double win.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. Also, what you say about this debate about whether or not, which way is the right way. And, to me, I think the main problem with coffee is that we have a lot of faceless coffee producers. So it's not like the wine industry where you have your vineyard and you can produce your wine, and you can actually, when you're done, you bottle it yourself and you bring it to the front of your Tuscany villa and you sell it in your little wine shop, and you know the end price. Like, this is, to me, the biggest problem in coffee still is that coffee producers are generally having nothing to do with the coffee once it leaves. And this is what I was getting back to a little bit earlier, is how can we promote more involvement on this end? So whether or not it's, some kind of, involvement with our partners in new cafe developments, or involvement with them in, economic activities that we have on Origin. How do we help them? How do they help us? And how do we work together to achieve this objective of truly working together? Because otherwise, I still feel like the coffee roaster has the upper hand. They essentially dictate through like sea market pressure what the coffee price is. And this is something that, the main issue, whether or not you're showing people how much you pay at Farmgate, or you're showing people videos of your relationships, the main point is to communicate, get the message out. What is this relationship about? Who is this person who we're working with? And what are the conditions around the, this economic activity that we're doing? Because it is economic. It is a commodity that is traded, and it's a business transaction. So
Yes, and look, the best and worst part of it is that ultimately, the scale, it's going to be determined by individual consumers. That's, every market, every economy is based on individual actions. So for instance, at the supermarket right now where I go, they have loose carrots, just you can pick 1, 2, 3, 5, or you have 10 carrots in a plastic bag, okay, which is obviously, to me, is not that smart, environmentally speaking. If tomorrow everybody in my suburb stopped buying the plastic bag carrots, within 30 days, the supermarket will see that they don't need that, and they're going to dump that product. Okay. Until people buy that, they're going to keep selling it. So that's where I think we gotta, we can't take a step longer than our legs, as sometimes we want to. It's a marathon, so it's a bit of a patience game, even though it's frustrating. But it's about those one-on-one conversations that we have behind the coffee machine with the other person on the other side of the bar, conversation that we have here, social media, and eventually it's about those individuals making those choices themselves. And, I had a friend of mine who's not into coffee. He drinks it. I went to his place and he showed me what coffee he had, and I was like, look, that's fine. Come to my place or drink some other coffee. Tell me what you think. And all of a sudden it's like, yep, makes sense. And all you gotta do is spend another $2, $3, $4 extra for a little tiny bag of coffee, which in all scheme of things, it comes down to cents per cup that he makes at home. So I think it's about conversations. And like you said, and like I said, there's no right or wrong. We just gotta try different formats until we find what works best for each company and for each individual to translate the message and don't get it lost in translation.
Yeah, I think that's an important point, and I do hope that it can somehow evolve without having too many mixed messages or too much cloudy thinking as far as a marketing perspective, because you see how many different people try to there's something to be said about the direct trade logo. We don't use it ourselves. We do work directly with producers in most cases, and I think that what's happened is that we've had this kind of like dilution of the message that you have, and this is something that I think is not good these days, that you have but I'm optimistic that things will change, that this kind of a medium also is a way to empower a coffee producer who wants to get their message out, because they can actually see what's going on, and they can also, it gives a little bit of a check and balance. I mean, it's a very powerful tool to be able to communicate across the world like this. And so I'm optimistic. I won't go pessimistic about this message, but we currently do have so many messages that are out there about what's the best. So I think these people who are aligning with transparency in coffee pricing, I think this is why I think that's good. You know, that it's a factor that strips out pretty much all other kinds of messaging. It's a basic fact. This is a price that we pay, and you can use that to compare what is that price, for that country, because every country has its own economic calculations, how they work. How can you compare this coffee that they pay this to that coffee at the same country that paid that, and what's behind that? And it gives the consumer really something to think about, and also to measure that it's a number, and everything else is kind of spin, I would call it. You know, that everything else about, we go to origin and we work directly. What does sustainability mean?
Yeah, it's such a buzzword, isn't it? Like, it's like,
what does it mean? Like, it's a word, it should have a definition. What is that?
it depends who you ask to, because if you ask the WHO, they have a certain idea, governments have another idea, farmers have a different idea, roasters have a different idea. And I think that it comes down to a couple of things that I've heard into this podcast across the topic that we're discussing. Number one, I think that for many years, let's put the label, specialty coffee roasters, they've been fighting the wrong battle, so against each other for a little bit of market, versus the real battle is actually against the big guys, because ultimately that's the real battle. That's a big war. I mean, it's a negative word, but you get me. And something that I liked from a recent podcast was that even if we decide to go, okay, I'm going to increase my coffee price by 5 cents, but every single cent of those 5 is going to go back to the farm, then, the person was talking, was like, well, I can manage, I can work around that 5 cents, whether it's 5, 6, 7, 8, 12, doesn't matter. It's just a starting conversation for their business. Sustainability, you mentioned wine, it's safe to say coffee is so underpriced in comparison to wine. I used to trade wine about 10 years ago back in my hometown in Italy. And then it comes down to bold moves from us and from people in the industry to say, okay, everybody, let's put up the prices for a latte. Let's put up a price for our espressos. And it's an evolution. It's a slow burner. And ultimately, it's about making life better for origin people to start with. Because really, this is all what's about, right? We're not talking about fancy French or Italian vineyard on Tuscany hills with all the wisdom bells. We're talking about developing all third world countries where, they don't have the luxuries and privilege that you and I have. That's really, that's what's all about. This is what's all about. And I'm asking a question from Bag, asking, how are the baristas at cafes able to help and support that purpose and vision, which I think is a relevant question.
You mean how are our cafe baristas able to support?
In general, because Beg is a beautiful barista from the UK, and he probably wants to know that for himself as well, to spread the message at his cafe.
So, I would strongly recommend that you, sorry, it's telling me I've spent 30 minutes on Instagram, sorry. So how do you spread the message? I think doing a little bit of research, there's certainly a lot of great outlets out there. I know, Perfect Daily Grind is probably writing a lot about specific farmers that they're working with. Good. If you have your favorite roasters who are doing good things, you can follow their Instagram feeds. They're telling a lot of stories about what's going on in coffee, so you can you can learn a bit. In a lot of cases, if you speak, so I'll say Spanish at this point, although I know, they certainly, I'm thinking about Central and South America, but if you speak, I don't know, Swahili or some other language in Africa or Oromia or some other ethnic Ethiopian language, you can probably, for sure, reach out to people. Everyone, pretty much everyone these days has a phone, they have WhatsApp. I think in a lot of cases, you can actually, if you're a barista, you can actually do some research, contact a farmer who you're serving their coffee, go straight through the roaster. Don't even talk to them. You would actually make these people's year. They would be extremely, at least the people that we're working with, if they got a message from a barista that they wanted to have a 15-minute call, that you would probably make their year. I think I'll say it like that because when I experience the joy and the excitement that our partners work with when they see where their coffee goes to, having more of an engagement with that process is I think what really makes it worth it for them to wake up at, I don't know, 5 a.m, day after day, and constantly battle selling coffee under, production costs. I mean, it's really important for them to have a voice, and if you're a barista, you should help amplify that voice.
I definitely love what you said because I never heard it so far. And what I would add to that, because you made my brain go into a bit of a digestion process, I think that what you're doing is really establishing that connection, and then you are able to be much more emotionally engaged to talk about their story because you have established that connection directly with the farmer, which I never thought about it, which I think it's something that, yeah, we should all do. Because then if I talk to Janet or Jennifer or John about that coffee, I can actually say, hey, I spoke to Jose, Pedro, whoever it is, just a week ago, and they told me this story or that story. Yeah, and also you make their day, their week, their year, which I think it's amazing. Yeah, I really like that.
But also, like, if you think about, what the people winning World Barista Championships and competing at the highest level, I mean, we've been getting into competition. We've been doing the last 7 years. We've been doing competitions, and I would say, what do you expect from a great barista who's on a international level? What do they say? Every single one of them says, I have this relationship with a farmer. I was there. I had visited the farm. Like, I took a holiday there and I went and I processed some coffee. I'm not saying that most barista salaries can
afford that.
Yeah, or that it's necessary that every single, we have an environmental catastrophe these days. I wouldn't recommend that, but the phone is a great way. Like the video calls, getting to know producers, because that's what we expect from baristas who are competing at the highest level. So why wouldn't we expect that most baristas would have an interest in having a relationship directly with a farm? I mean, it's also it's really easy. It
sounds so logical and easy, and yet you're the first one that I've heard with this concept, which I love. It's great. It's a great.
When every barista in the world is contacting 5 farmers, but for now, there's a lot of people have a lot of time on their hands, so give it a shot.
100%. And Kris, I know you're super restricted. I know you need to go soon.
I'll tell you when I have a few more minutes, so it's fine.
Okay. Before I let you go, I ask all guests this question. It's a bit out of the box, but it's the format, and it kind of breaks it down, and then we get back to the real coffee topic to close it up. But if you could, who would you like to have dinner with? And it doesn't have to be in coffee. Anyone.
Who would I like to have dinner with? Yeah, I mean, I guess Bill Gates.
Yeah, makes sense in this day, especially now. Yeah.
I mean, a real dinner, I guess. I think it may be a little frustrating only having that much time, but because of the way his brain processes, he's probably the ability. I mean, yeah, I would say either him or Noam Chomsky or yeah, who else? Actually, now you're getting me thinking. Maybe it's not Bill Gates.
Good.
You know, I'm very much interested in a lot of linguist studies. A lot of the professors that were working at MIT or people who are really thinking and engaging in this topic of where are we, where are we going? Yeah, so I could probably give you a short list, but
That's
yeah.
okay. I'm sure it's a little out of the box, usually halfway mark. But I want to hear
But
yours.
these people are thinking. They first of all they have the means to. I mean, maybe not Noam Chomsky. He's more just a thinker, but the people who have the means to really think and get rid of all of the superfluous chatter and really think about how to tackle astronomically difficult challenges. I mean, this way of thinking is really inspiring to me, I would say. And
Yeah.
I mean, I might get a lot of pushback about Bill Gates with the whole microchips and all that stuff, but
Well, I think, yeah, go on.
who is yours? Just
You're the second person asking. That's fantastic. Mine is simple. I'm not sure if you know him. His name is Gary Vaynerchuk, and Gary V goes by, and it's just an incredible, fast-thinking individual. And yeah, I'd love to have dinner with him, 100%.
have you had dinner with him? Or?
No, I wish. I wish. One day. Look, and to be quite fair, though, kudos to you, because I think that the thoughts that you share are quite inspiring towards the changes that you want to achieve across the industry, because you've said, going directly to farmers as far as a phone call and video call goes, which is already thinking outside the box. And the things that you're doing behind the scenes and things that you just shared are inspiring to the people who are going to re-listen to this podcast and re-watch it, because you are the Bill Gates that the coffee industry needs, because you are literally at the forefront. So we definitely look up at you, which is fantastic.
Oh, thank you. I mean, without the money, I guess, but that's we don't
Yes.
do it. I'm not saying that we are able to grow as a company, and we're focused on doing it in a healthy way. So it's yeah, thank you for saying that. But it's I certainly would disagree. I think there's a lot of other inspiring people that I look up to in coffee, but
100%.
I have to say that, don't I?
Yeah, and we
yeah.
Go on.
Well, I mean, look at the people who have come before us and also helped to shape where we came from. We certainly had some great. We had some forward-thinking roasters here in Germany. Cahote was pushing direct trade from the very early on, maybe at least a few years before us, and we aligned with them a little bit with our Brazil purchasing. But most of our inspiration came, I guess, from what Jeff Watts was doing in Intelligentsia. This for us was really where our moral compass was pointing. And what a lot of these companies were doing in the US, where they were really focused on these kind of engagement. Tim Wendelboe was, I think, for all of us, somebody who, because he was, so pretty. No, I'm kidding. No, he's a friend. Actually, he was doing it in a way that was extremely professional. So to professionalize at least in Europe, what everyone was doing. No one really had much money in this movement when they were starting out. So we all just put what we could into it. And to see someone who was so serious and so professional and respectable with what he was doing, from how he was competing to brewing to his ethics and his philosophy, also this Nordic mentality. It's something that very early on from 2011, we really aligned with that philosophy. So a lot of I would say our moral compass is pointing towards this Nordic idea. Also what they were doing in the US. So I think Berlin was interesting for that fact, that we had this huge influx from Australia, from New Zealand. We had, I think it's one of the reasons why I would call it, and I'll just say it, I think it's the most diverse coffee city in the world. We have a huge Turkish community here. We have an Austrian style of coffee. We have an old traditional German style of coffee. We have Nordic influence. We have American influence, and Australian. We had these Australian. 2010, we became the Australian baristas, and they showed Berlin what good service was and how you can actually make great quality drinks. So I think in a lot of ways, yeah, I mean, I think you've talked with you've talked to Ralph and maybe to Bonanza already, or?
Yeah, I talked to Ralph, and also had the pleasure to talk to Tim as well early on, a couple of months ago. And I agree with you. I think Tim is also another great example of one of those characters, like yourself and Ralph and others, who have been shaping the foundations, and you guys are all building the foundation to leave behind a legacy for the bigger purpose. And ultimately, someone else will also step up the game, and someone else will come up with something else. And I think that
I think they do, and part of I think our main goal is not to have such a reactive response to these kind of new things that come. I think it's better to embrace it and try to connect with it as best as you can, and adapt, because you're also just going to get steamrolled by whatever the next new thing is if you don't focus on it. So from a smaller, if we were a bit smaller and maybe opening more recently, I would definitely give that advice, that you need to not shut yourself up, and do not live in a bubble of your own, opinions of yourself, because that's really a dangerous place to be for a lot of reasons,
Yeah, there's nothing to add top of that. I think that's beautifully said. And then look, I think ultimately the real hack is accept and thrive towards innovation. I think don't be stuck where you are. It's important, but whilst you're on that journey, don't forget your moral compass at home. I think it's so important. You can still apply innovative way of thinking, innovation as far as where is machinery, where is service, where is the venue or the coffee, yada, yada, yada. As long as you got your morals and your belief system right next to you, holding your hands, and then you can go on the right direction.
Well, I would say so. I'm actually going to contradict myself a little bit, usually, because a lot of times I mean, this is business, and we have 50 something staff in our company. So a lot of times with a company who's not so flexible, you can't be as agile as you want to be, and you may find yourself in a situation where you have, let's say, a cost center or some kind of project that you've been working on, which is going down a direction which you can't necessarily just end or stop. And so you need to sometimes you have to have this overlap. You have to have this period, and it's something that is hard to share how, because you may end up going in a direction which is not in your moral compass, and you need to change, and it does take time to change. I'll give an example. We've worked a lot with certain customers, and when they start growing in a way that it becomes a larger part of your business, and you need to get back into a more healthy place for your company, you can find yourself in a situation where you need to make pretty difficult decisions about how to move forward and how to navigate that. And some of these decisions could take 2 or 3 years to get out. So this is something I think most business owners, they will admit that you can't always just do what you want to do. And this is also a difficult thing. And it's something that a lot of people, I think, don't talk about, because you end up in a situation where, and it happens with everyone. If it doesn't happen with you, then probably you're not, I don't know.
I get you. Look, obviously, there is a fine balance, and you're right. You can't always do what you want to do. Well, I suppose what I meant, it was more, as long as you don't lose yourself, you can lose yourself within the process. I know the whole cliche stuff.
I'm not saying we do. I'm just saying that, you have to make hard decisions, and
Yeah. But without being too harsh on yourself, if 95% of your business decision, or 90 or 80%, or the vast majority, still align with those values, I think. And you're right, not many people talk about this. And that's why, people often cover success and define success with currency rather than happiness, gratitude, purpose, how meaningful and how impactful you are towards, others. For instance, in your case, your pillar is to give back to origin.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. And so when you're making a decision about what to do on this end, who your customers are, would you sacrifice a situation that doesn't necessarily align with your values if it helps you to achieve your goals at origin and building communities with your staff? I mean, it comes down to questions like this, because it happens all the time, and you're constantly put in situations where you need to make decisions and grow your company. So I think, if I were to give some advice, it would be really, you should always eternalize that and always try to get back to your center. So you will find yourself going off in a direction or a tangent, and try as hard as you can not to get stuck in that direction, because it can be tempting, right? You can sometimes realize, oh, this new vision of ours, it's more profitable, or let's get rid of these things that are part of what we really believe, because it just happens. And so that's a difficult choice.
Yeah, and I think going back to where we were at the start of this chat, again, we sometimes are too hard on ourselves, because there's no right or wrong. So I think that even then, you might take a decision out of 1,000 that you've taken in the year, and then that decision, a year later, 2 years later, you're like, but then the other 1,000 plus decisions were aligning. So, it's okay. I think it's okay.
Yeah, I think that's the point. Yeah, well, I think, there's not much else that we're working on these days. Do you have any questions, or?
Look, I know you soon need to go, and thank you. So I'll take this chance to thank you for popping by and staying with us for this time. And people who are going to really listen to this are going to really get value. The usual question that I have to close it off are, what's your coffee mission? Which I think we covered that extensively. But what's next? What's next on your planet with your mission?
So we're, besides what we're doing at Origin, our current goal is to solve problems solve coffee problems. So if we have, one of the main problems that we have now is that, our end consumer, which is, we're basically focusing on these two ends and how to connect them as good as possible. Our end consumers are not as, they have some coffee problems, I call them, as far as how to brew coffee, how to make coffee, how to enjoy coffee at home or in our cafes. We're working on the cafe part, and now we're working a little bit more on the end consumer part, how to engage with our customers at home. So we're actually, I'm in our new training center. We have a video. I could show you, but it's just being painted as well. But we have a video training center that we're working on, also to do more multimedia and more training videos for home. We have some new machines that we're releasing, so some home machines that are a little bit more affordable that we really will stand behind. So we want to engage, we want to engage customers more in how they can make coffee at home, also small offices, because times are changing extraordinarily fast, and how people are enjoying their coffee is also changing. So we want to adapt to help people solve the problems of how they can find and make coffee in a new challenging environment that we're in, which I don't think is going to go away anytime soon.
I agree with you. And
So,
I think it's beautiful, and I love what you're doing, and just keep pushing those boundaries, keep doing what you do. And you know, I've been a big fan of your brand for a long time. And when, you know, you were pretty much one of the first coffee brands that popped out of the European bunch when I started, you know, my coffee career 9 years ago.
yeah.
Especially, you know, 5 years ago, I jumped more into the specialty zone, and you know, you guys, you know, and I was lucky enough to drink your coffee here in Melbourne, because there's one couple of shops that were international roasters. So I was lucky to have some of your coffee, which was delicious.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was such a pleasure having you. I know you gotta go do a lot of stuff,
Yeah,
and
we're
your
building a
daughter.
cafe. So yeah, the cafe opened. Yeah, it's new. It's a neighborhood cafe up in Cultivating. So it's not far, but they're delivering a countertop today, and I'm trying not to. You know, I was talking with my partner and my wife, who's the same person, about. We were at the store the other day, and we started thinking, oh, you know what? This is starting to become a little normal that we can open a shop. And you know what we have, you know, we're still doing it a lot ourselves. So we had a van filled with, you know, all of the stuff for the new store, and we have our list now, you know, what we need to buy when we're opening, and it's becoming a little bit normal.
You have a template and a format. That's beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, we've been doing this long enough now that you know, we're trying to find great neighborhoods that, you know, that we can really, also that are underserved with coffee. This goes back to our current goal, right? That we want to really focus on helping people to have better coffee. Yeah, and the coffee that we believe in.
Makes
So,
absolute sense. Dankeschön. Thank
yeah,
you.
no,
Thank you very much. I really appreciate our chat. I'm feeling super grateful, and I'll shoot you a DM. I know you need to go, but yeah, I really appreciate your time and story and the insights that were really. I will sit down and do some thinking for sure.
good. Yeah, take care. Be safe.
You too. Take it
All
easy.
right.
Good luck with the shop and your daughter and everything.
Oh,
Stay
thank
safe.
you. Bye bye.
Ciao. Um, there you have it, guys. It was a beautiful 40, 53 minutes. He was only meant to be here for half an hour. He obviously went up above that, so I'm very grateful and thankful that he was able to. I think we just touched base on interesting topic. It was very fluid chat. We I didn't have too many questions prepared, just because I knew it would have been only half an hour, but it just flowed really well. You could really grasp and feel passion, the fire that he has inside about what he really cares, and that's something that I often talk about on these episodes. That's what really matters. It's 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 such a not much talked kind of conversation. Happiness, passion, purpose, drive. It keeps going. Values, because there's a lot of etiquettes, and oh, you shouldn't say this, you shouldn't do this, you should be doing this, you should be wearing this. There is so much superficial stuff, clout surrounding us, that stop us to actually do and talk and act the way that really resonate with us. And hearing Kris was so refreshing. Refreshing because that's really what really matters. And there's no right or wrong. It's not about believing in, you know, the earth being flat or round. It doesn't matter whether it's climate change, doesn't matter how political it is. Whatever you're doing, you need that purpose and those values. Um, there's a beautiful Japanese scheme where you put in the circles your values, what you're good at, what can you actually charge people for, what's your, you know, your qualities and your strengths, and then it kind of shapes you into the right direction. And again, there's no right or wrong direction, so I correct myself. Uh, so yeah, I think it was really refreshing. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. We got three more as usual next week. Oh no, next week I think it's four. There's actually a special one. If you're still listening, the few people still online. Uh, Next week we'll be actually able to take you on a virtual live tour of a coffee farm in Indonesia. So I'm very excited. I should have said this to Kris. But yeah, we're gonna do a farm tour. At least half an hour at farm and then half an hour back at HQ. Probably they're gonna do a little bit of a capping or Q&A about that farm. So that's an exciting episode for me, and I'm looking forward to it. Before I close off, big shout out to everyone still here: Tanti, Vag, Peter, Andre, Yuki, Victor, Laxfolk, and R716. So yeah, I really appreciate you. If you enjoyed this episode, feel free as usual to reshare the IGTV, take a screenshot, share with your friends. I think what Kris said about opening these conversations and start changing the way people thinking starts from this. Start from sharing, start from opening those conversations and get to the table, sit down, talk. And that's how change happens. And yeah, I hope to see you next week. There's some pretty good surprises for you. Tanti, watch out. There's going to be an Indonesian coffee farm virtual tour live with, I can say, Mikael Jasin. So he's coming up. He's coming back with us. So I'm very excited to have Mikael again. He was very kind to offer this opportunity. He's touring farms. So we'll be able to do, yeah, a live show, different than usual, different format. And let's see how that goes. So again, thank you for being here. Very grateful. I will let you go. Please be safe. Show the love. Naked Coffee, good to see you. Hey man, you tune in slightly late. I'm closing off. And yeah, it was good to be here again. I'll see you next week. Naked Coffee, I just dropped a news. We're gonna have a Miko Jasin virtual live tour from a coffee farm in Indonesia next week. So guys, stay tuned as usual. Check our stories, check our feeds, and we'll talk soon. Please be safe, and yeah, I'm sending you all love and positivity.